Is Boston quietly positioning itself for a move that could reshape the Eastern Conference before anyone realizes what is happening? As the trade deadline approaches, league insiders are starting to whisper that the Celtics are no longer just monitoring the market. They are actively hunting for a piece that could elevate an already dangerous roster into something far more intimidating. The narrative around Boston has shifted faster than expected. What began as a season filled with cautious expectations after Jayson Tatum's injury has turned into a statement year driven by Jaylen Brown's MVP-caliber dominance and a roster that refuses to plateau. Behind closed doors, one name keeps resurfacing in front office discussions: Nick Claxton, not because he is a flashy superstar, but because his skill set aligns with a blueprint that could unlock a new ceiling for Joe Mazzulla's system. Claxton's recent performance against Boston served as a reminder of how disruptive he can be, controlling the paint, finishing with authority, extending possessions with offensive rebounds, and delivering a clutch putback dunk that forced overtime in a high-pressure moment. But here is the real intrigue: Claxton is not just a rim protector, he is a modern defensive chess piece. He can switch onto guards, contest at the rim without fouling, initiate fast breaks, and create subtle playmaking advantages that do not always show up in headlines. Those hidden impacts are exactly the kind of edge that separates contenders from champions in May and June. His contract structure adds another layer of strategic appeal. With a declining salary over the coming seasons, Boston would gain long-term flexibility while securing a player entering his prime. That financial structure matters more than most fans realize, especially for a franchise that must balance championship ambition with future cap maneuvering. Anthony Simons' expiring deal looms as a powerful trade lever, giving Boston the ability to construct competitive packages without sacrificing its core identity. Meanwhile, interest from teams like the Lakers raises the stakes, turning this into a multi-team race where timing, leverage, and negotiation could decide the outcome. The most compelling part is not just whether Boston lands Claxton, it is what his arrival would symbolize: a calculated commitment to rim protection, defensive versatility, and playoff reliability. With Tatum expected to return for a late-season surge, the Celtics could be preparing for a second gear that the rest of the league is not ready to counter. Are we witnessing the quiet setup for a defining move that shifts the title landscape? Or is this just the beginning of an even bigger strategy that has not fully revealed itself yet? As February approaches, league executives are starting to read between the lines, and the message is clear: the Celtics are not browsing the market out of curiosity. They are hunting for a center who can change playoff math in ways the box score never fully explains. According to Shams Charania, Boston is actively pushing toward a proven starting big, and that detail alone reveals more ambition than any headline-grabbing rumor. Here is where it gets interesting. Sitting at 28-16 without Jayson Tatum, Boston has quietly created leverage. Not desperation, leverage. The front office knows the East is wide open, and more importantly, they know that waiting carries more risk than acting. This is not about patching a weakness fans complain about on social media. This is about solving problems that only appear in late May when possessions slow down and every mistake gets magnified. Ivica Zubac enters the picture for reasons that go far beyond size. He represents reliability, physicality, predictability in chaos. In a postseason environment where small ball eventually meets its limits, a center who can anchor defensive possessions, punish switches, and survive targeted matchups becomes a strategic weapon. Zubac does not demand touches, but he bends spacing simply by existing near the rim. That gravity matters when defenses load up on Jaylen Brown and prepare for Tatum's return. Boston's off-season decisions were not random. Moving Kristaps Porzingis and reshaping the rotation created financial pathways that only a few contenders currently possess. Anthony Simons' expiring contract is not just salary filler, it is a flexible instrument that allows Boston to negotiate without sacrificing long-term optionality. When Tomer Azarly mentioned Clippers' interest in Simons, it quietly connected dots that front offices had already been circling. This is where the curiosity gap widens. If Boston adds a center like Zubac, the rotation stabilizes in ways that ripple across the entire roster. Defensive coverage becomes simpler, rebounding margins tighten, foul pressure shifts onto opposing bigs. Suddenly, matchups that once felt uncomfortable start leaning Boston's way. And with Tatum expected back for a late-season surge, the Celtics would not just be deeper, they would be structurally harder to game plan against. The bold take nobody wants to say out loud is this: Boston might be closer to a finals-level roster right now than some East rivals are willing to admit. One disciplined, calculated move could tilt the conference without triggering panic or headlines. The question is not whether the Celtics can afford to be aggressive. While the league waits for surprise moves, the New York Knicks have sent a message that is almost confrontational in its clarity. Landry Shamet is not available, not as filler, not as a sweetener, not even as a bargaining chip. And that stance matters more than it seems, especially for teams like Boston that are watching the market tighten in real time. Shamet's perfect shooting night against Brooklyn was not just a hot streak, it was a declaration of trust. 6 threes, 0 misses, relentless energy. Mike Brown did not hesitate to elevate him into the top 8 of the rotation. A reminder that value at this stage of the season is not always measured by contract size or name recognition. Sometimes it is about who a coach trusts when the margin for error disappears. The fascinating part is how quickly Shamet went from roster math problem to protected asset. At the end of the offseason, New York was juggling names and salaries, trying to squeeze flexibility out of an unforgiving cap sheet. Then the unexpected happened. Malcolm Brogdon retired, reshaping the equation overnight. The Knicks made a quiet choice that now looks deliberate. They kept Shamet, even as injuries tested their patience and depth. That loyalty paid off. Shamet returned healthy, confident, and lethal from deep, shooting over 43% from 3 this season. Brown openly credits him as one of the team's best on-ball defenders, a statement that raises eyebrows considering who else shares that roster. Toughness, discipline, execution. Those traits do not trend on social media, but they win playoff possessions. Here is where the curiosity gap opens for Celtics fans. Every player a rival locks away, reduces supply. Every refusal sharpens the market. Boston is operating in that same environment, armed with flexibility, contracts, and timing. The Knicks, drawing a hard line around Shamet, does not hurt Boston. It clarifies the board. It forces contenders to reveal priorities and expose where real leverage exists. The bold thought nobody wants to say is this: the teams refusing to sell role players are quietly admitting fear. Fear of losing continuity, fear of overreacting. Boston, by contrast, has positioned itself to strike without panic. Watching rivals cling to trusted veterans only reinforces how prepared the Celtics are to capitalize when the right door opens. After the loss to the Clippers, LeBron did something unusual, even by his standards. He shut the door. No speculation, no roster talk, no trade deadline noise. He called it disrespectful, but silence from LeBron has never meant calm. Historically, it means pressure building behind the scenes, and right now, that pressure is aimed directly at a Lakers roster that cannot protect the perimeter, cannot score off the bench, and cannot consistently support 2 superstars deep into games that matter. This is where the Celtics quietly enter the conversation. Not loudly, not recklessly, but strategically. Boston is one of the few franchises positioned to turn chaos into opportunity without sacrificing identity. While the Lakers hope health fixes structural problems, rival executives are asking a more uncomfortable question. What if this version of the Lakers has already peaked? LeBron's words about fantasy basketball were meant to deflect, but they also exposed a reality. He knows exactly what this team lacks. He knows the margin is thin, and he knows time is not infinite. The Celtics, on the other hand, are operating from strength, cap flexibility, tradable contracts. A front office that understands timing is leverage. That is how robberies happen in this league, not with desperation but with patience. Imagine a scenario where Los Angeles is forced to choose between short-term survival and long-term reset, Boston would not be calling to empty the vault. They would be calling to offer relief, clean books, useful pieces, stability, the kind of offer that looks reasonable on paper and devastating in hindsight. This is not about LeBron chasing rings recklessly. It is about alignment. Boston has structure, depth, a system that does not ask stars to carry chaos. Plug LeBron into that ecosystem and suddenly the conversation shifts from fit to inevitability. Defenses break earlier, rotations tighten, pressure flips sides. The most dangerous part for the league is not the rumor itself. It is the fact that Celtics fans can see the logic without forcing it. No panic, no overhaul, just a calculated strike if the window cracks open. And LeBron's refusal to talk might be the first sign that the glass is already under stress.